DocTalk is brought to you by Merck Animal Health, the science of healthier animals.
Hey folks, welcome to DocTalk. I'm Dr. Dan Thompson. Thanks for joining us today. Today my guest is going to be Dr. Casey Olson, and we're going to talk about reproductive efficiency in your cow herd. Everything from preg rate to calving intervals. It's going to be a great show.
As dependable as the sunrise, in dairy parlors, open pastures, on ranches and feed yards across America. A place where reputation is more than a name, where the science of healthier animals is a way of life. It's the responsibility that drives who we are and what we do. Every decision, every day. It's your livelihood and our responsibility.
This segment is brought to you by the Beef Quality Assurance Program and the Kansas Beef Council, improving animal care and beef safety for more than 20 years.
Hey folks, welcome to DocTalk. Look who we got back, Dr. Casey Olson. Dr. Olson is one of our, I want to say, leading men of DocTalk. He's on the show.
Wow.
Yeah, I know. It's always a pleasure to get Dr. Olson away from his cow-calf herd, away from the classroom, his research, and get him over here and share some information with us.
And let me tell you, it's much better to be a leading man on DocTalk than a leading man in Hollywood.
I would have to agree. We appreciate all that Dr. Olson does. We're here at Kansas State University. Dr. Olson is a professor. You have a chaired position.
Sure.
It's the,
if you say so.
What is the chair?
The family of Walter M. Lewis endows my position here at Kansas State University. Old-time Hereford breeder and a lover of forages.
Yep. And so we're very fortunate to have Dr. Olson here on our staff and to work with our students, work with our faculty, and work with our producers. We're going to talk about reproductive efficiency. And really, you know, what I was getting at is, I was sitting there thinking about, okay, so when we have failure in reproduction in our cow herd, it costs us
Dearly.
And there are many different ways to define failure, or at least a few ways. And so I thought, well, let's get Dr. Olson over here and let's talk about reproductive efficiency. And so some of the metrics, what is reproductive efficiency?
Well, in a nutshell, you want every cow to have a baby every 12 months. Okay, but we have some mathematical measures that we use to judge our success. One might be calving interval. Okay, calving interval is the length of time between when a cow has a baby in this year and when she has her next baby next year. And with the beast we're working with, the calving interval can be no longer than 12 months if she's going to be all that she can be genetically.
And so calving interval, that's an individual, obviously, and it can be a herd level. But then preg rate?
Okay, preg rate is the glue that holds the two bookends together in this list of three that I'm going to give you. But pregnancy percentage is defined as the number of females that conceive divided by the number of females that are exposed to breeding in any given year.
So, and then the last one is weaning percentage.
We need to get paid. So in spite of the fact that females get pregnant, that doesn't guarantee our paycheck. We need to be sure that the female is able to bear that calf that she was impregnated with in year 1 and bring it to weaning in year 2. That's roughly an 18-month metric to measure. And it's probably the one that's at least in the top 2 or 3 anyway, in terms of financial success.
All right, so calving interval, preg rate, weaning percentage are the 3 metrics that we need to be focused on when it talks about reproductive efficiency.
Yes, sir.
And not one is more important than the other. They all kind of, one precedes or relates to the other.
They all need to be good, or we don't get paid, unfortunately.
Yep. So it's a great way to start the talk. We're going to talk about, when we come back, we're going to talk about what happens when we have higher or lower numbers, and where you need to look at in your herd to determine what the kind of issues might be that are leading to a decreased reproductive efficiency, which means a lower paycheck. Now we got your attention. We'll see you after these messages. Hey folks, Dr. Dan from DocTalk here. Thanks for joining me for our Cattle First tip today, sponsored by Behringer Ingelheim Vet Medica. And we're talking about injection sites. And injection sites, all of our injections go in the neck. Here's a picture of the injection site triangle that you can see is underneath the nuchal ligament, above the vertebral column, and in front of the point of the shoulder. This injection site triangle is where we will put all of our injections for cattle. Now, if we're going to do 2 injections in that area, we put about a hand's width apart between the 2 injections. Nothing goes in the top butt, nothing in the round, nothing over the ribs. Now, if you're going to do a sub-Q injection, you go in at a 45-degree angle with a 5/8 inch or 1/2 inch needle. If you're going to do an intramuscular injection, you go in perpendicular to the calf with an 1 to 1.5 inch length needle. This is your Cattle First tip.
You spent countless hours building a strong operation. But when it comes to trichomoniasis, the odds are stacked against you. It takes just one infected bull to take down the whole herd. Damage could include open cows, lost pregnancies, and lost profits. The good news is with TrichGuard, a herd doesn't have to feel like a house of cards.
This segment is brought to you by the Beef Quality Assurance Program and the Kansas Beef Council, improving animal care and beef safety for more than 20 years.
Hey folks, welcome back to DocTalk. Dr. Dan Thompson here with Dr. Casey Olson, and we are going to talk about what happens when we have decreased or appropriate pregnancy rates, but still have decreased reproductive efficiency. And we'll start out with the 88%. How's that? What's that number?
Okay, it's not magic, and it's just a number from my own imagination. But producers, if you look at your records, and if you have a pregnancy percentage in any given year of 88% or less, you've got a problem. That means that 12 cows of every 100 did not carry a pregnancy through to preg check time.
So we get to 88%. So when we have a low pregnancy rate, below 88%, what are some of the first things that you're going to investigate as being the culprit or the reason why that's happening?
Okay, these are big numbers, and usually the answer to a big obvious problem is fairly simple. First 2 places I'd look are nutrition and genetics.
Gotcha. So what are some of the things nutritionally that you've seen or could be relating to a lower preg rate?
Okay, when I try to help folks out that know they have a problem with reproductive efficiency, the first thing I ask to do is to go look at the cows as they approach the tail end of gestation. Going through a set of cows at that time, their body condition is generally going to show you how they're going to perform during the subsequent calving season, and what kind of shape that they'll be in for subsequent breeding exposure. So with a pretty negative number there associated with pregnancy rate, first thing I'll be looking for there at that time is body condition score of 4 or less. Those girls are about to go through the hardest part of the production cycle. During the last 60 days of gestation, something like 60 to 80% of fetal growth is going to occur. Okay, and that's going to have to be supported by diet. It's going to have to be supported by maternal tissue. And if maternal tissue isn't there in the form of body condition, she is probably going to have difficulty calving. and she will be in a position where she won't be able to recondition herself before that subsequent breeding season happens.
Gotcha. So body condition score going into that last gestation or last trimester of gestation.
Yes.
And it's pretty difficult to change that at that time, isn't it?
It really is. In fact, it's probably impossible without writing a very big check. But diagnostically, I think that's probably the best time to pick up on a problem like that and maybe look down the road a year or two to see how we can correct it.
Okay. What about genetics?
Well,
Some of the things that you're thinking about there.
Sure, and briefly, I can probably get an idea about whether or not there's a genetic problem during that same visit at that same time. Okay, if I go out in the last trimester of gestation and see a bunch of big framey cows that are having to make do on poor quality forage, my mind will immediately go to a place where I start asking questions about biological type and their suitability for the producer's environment. Cows can get too big, they can get too milky to feed economically.
Yeah, when we talk about the genetics and we talk about matching, Dr. Boggs always used to say, buy your cows to match your environment and buy your bull to match your market.
Dr. Boggs is a very wise man. He's my boss.
Yeah, well, hey, we're going to talk about some of the things that even when you have a high pregnancy rate, that could mean you have decreased reproductive efficiency after this break.
So the cow-calf sector, we're the first part of the production cycle, and so we can impact health all the way down the line. So when we're developing a vaccination protocol for our cow-calf herd, it's important to consider the timeline in the cow. There are certain times of the year where she might not respond as favorably to a vaccine as other times of the year. It's also important to consider that we're not only vaccinating the dam, but we're hoping to improve the health of her calf through her vaccination. So some of the things that you want to make sure that you look for on your vaccine labels are things such as a fetal protection claim to help protect that calf from persistent infection with BVD if by chance the mother does become infected with that virus during gestation. Another thing to consider is that over time, the immunity that calf acquires from mom through colostrum is going to wear off. And so we want to make sure that those calves are going to be protected before they enter one of the most stressful transitions of their life. That being weaning, transportation, and potentially commingling with other calves in the next sector of our beef production cycle. On a cow-calf operation, there are so many different classes of cattle, and it's important that you consider each of them individually, particularly if you're dealing with purchased animals with an unknown vaccination history or open replacement heifer candidates, that we're vaccinating those naive animals or those that haven't seen a modified live vaccine before, at least 30 days before they're AI'd or turned out with the bull. Sometimes it can be really easy to forget about the bulls in the off season, unless of course they're tearing up fences and gates. But it's important to remember that they need to be boosted too. And so bring those guys in and make sure that they're getting the vaccines that they need as well. In the beef industry, we're so fortunate to have so many different technologies and varieties of vaccines available to us. And so whatever your specific operation needs, we can probably find something that fits great for you. So after you've sat down with your veterinarian and either developed or revised your herd health protocol, one of the most important things is that you keep a written record. And that record's on the farm, it's with your veterinarian. And so whenever you have a question about your vaccines or timing, there's a resource that you can refer to.
Join us April 6th for the Gardner Angus Ranch 40th Anniversary Spring Production Sale at the ranch near Ashland, Kansas. The sale will feature 342 registered bulls, 386 registered females, and 532 bred Gardner Angus influenced commercial females. The sale will start at 9 a.m. sharp. If you are unable to join us in person, you can bid online by going to liveauction.tv and register prior to the sale. At Gardner Angus Ranch, you aren't just buying a breed, you are buying a brand backed by 4 generations of disciplined seed stock production. We hope to see you April 6th at the ranch.
Valley Vet Supply is devoted to providing information and professional quality products at reasonable prices.
Valley Vet Supply.
This segment is brought to you by the Beef Quality Assurance Program and the Kansas Beef Council, improving animal care and beef safety for more than 20 years.
Hey folks, welcome back to DocTalk. Dr. Dan Thompson here with Dr. Casey Olson talking about reproductive efficiency. And we can have a high preg rate but still have decreased reproductive efficiency because we have 2 other things that fit into that metric. So let's talk about some of the things that could happen if we have a 88% or greater pregnancy rate, but then we could have problems with calving distribution, right?
Any producer that's worth her salt. Okay, when I look at a pregnancy rate that's 88% or higher, and suggest that there's a problem, is going to come back to me and say, you know, Doc, I don't know that 3 more pregnancies per 100 cows is really going to pay the bill that I'm going to have to stand to feed that increased reproductive performance into the cattle. And you know what? They're absolutely right. But the thing that I would then ask to see from previous year's records is something called calving distribution.
Okay, so describe to me what calving distribution should look like.
Okay. Well, in a 60-day calving season, if you divide it into 3 20-day segments, so first 20 days, second 20 days, last 20 days, most of the time when there is a problem, when pregnancy rate is acceptable, you'll look at a calving distribution that has an even third in the first 20 days, an even third in the second 20 days, and a third of the cows calving in the last 20 days of the calving season. It needs to and should be much better than that.
Yeah, so we would want to put more towards the beginning.
Right. And cows that are ready to get pregnant, okay, immediately when breeding exposure begins in any given year, are what's going to get over that next hump in reproductive efficiency. Ideally, we would like calving distribution to be 60-20-20. In other words, 60% of the births taking place in the first 20 days of the season, 20% in the second, and 20% or less in the third 20 days. And the payback for that, okay, is something that people don't spend a lot of time thinking about, but it's worth digging into here.
Okay, what is it?
Well, a colleague at North Dakota State, Dr. Chris Ringwall, did an interesting study back in 2008. He had a demonstration herd with that ideal calving distribution. It was very, very close to 60-20-20. And what he was able to document in that study is that relative to the calves that were born in the first 20 days of the season, that middle cut of calves was 45 to 50 pounds lighter at weaning time. That last cut, born during the last 20 days, was 90 pounds lighter than the calves that were born early. Okay, in this market where we have $2 per pound calves, that's a big paycheck that you're leaving behind. And getting over that last hump to an improved calving distribution, there are some discrete and easy steps that you can go through to get to that point.
That is, to me, that's more than you get for preconditioning.
Oh yeah.
By a long ways. Pounds are king.
Pounds are king.
Well, folks, we've had 3 segments here with Dr. Olson. We're going to take a break. When we come back, we're going to do a wrap-up talking about how some of these metrics and how reproductive efficiency impacts your bottom line. More after this. We'll see you in a minute.
When you're in the cattle business, no matter how much it's a business, it still starts with cattle. It's this basic notion that sits at the core of how we approach things at Behringer Ingelheim. We understand when you put the cattle first, it just naturally leads to doing the right things. If you want to do well in this business, you start by doing right. Take care of the cattle, and they'll take care of you.
When it comes to stopping horn flies, cattlemen love their Vet Gun. Today they love it even more because Vet Gun now has a 1-2 punch with 2 VetCap insecticides. New AIM-A abamectin can be used in rotation with AIM-L for effective in-season control. Each delivers a unique mode of action to manage hornfly resistance. So start your in-season rotation program with AIM-L and new AIM-A abamectin VetCaps from AgriLabs.
Some call it a come-from-behind victory, an unlikely win, a reversal of fortune, snatching victory from the jaws of defeat. This is our moment, our victory dance, because we choose confidence. We choose Zuprevo for BRD treatment. Ask your veterinarian to prescribe Zuprevo. Zuprevo is a fast-acting, long-lasting BRD treatment that you can count on to get the job done. Choose confidence. Choose Zuprevo from Merck Animal Health.
This segment is brought to you by the Beef Quality Assurance Program and the Kansas Beef Council, improving animal care and beef safety for more than 20 years.
Hey folks, welcome back to DocTalk. Dr. Dan Thompson here with Dr. Casey Olson, who's a friend and colleague from the Department of Animal Sciences and Industry here at Kansas State University, where we teach. We actually teach a class together.
We do. It's a good class.
Beef science. You know, I come K-State, take our class. When we add all these things up, if I'm mediocre and I want to get better, what are some steps I can do to improve my calving distribution and my reproductive efficiency?
Okay, well there's some discrete things that you can at least consider to get to the elite in reproductive efficiency. First thing I'd look at is, when are you calving? When you are attempting to make spring calving cows calve in January, February, or March, you're really up against it because you're having to feed through the period of time when forage quality is the lowest and forage availability is actually the lowest. Considering calving in the true spring at a later time of the year can be a great leap forward in terms of improved and low cost reproductive performance.
Cool. When I heard a quote the other day. It says, you know, when you're bad, average can look pretty good.
Sad but true.
How do we get? I mean, if you were going to describe that kind of elite herd or elite managed herd, kind of walk me through some of the things that stick out in your mind. Because obviously the elite managed equals increased profitability.
Yes. Okay, so that elite herd, okay, in addition to seasonally appropriate calving season, which helps a great deal and costs no money, you're going to find producers in the elite that use estrus synchronization either with or without AI, because it gets all of the females, so to speak, on the same page reproductively as that breeding season is initiated. You're going to find people that have regionally appropriate genetics that match their set of resources. You're going to find people that are open to the idea of artificially shaving off some of those inferior genetics that are calving at the tail end of the season. Okay, and that starts really with heifer selection. Okay, you shouldn't even consider keeping a heifer that wasn't born in the first half of the calving season as a minimum, because if she was born late, she's going to reach puberty late, and she's gonna, if she conceives at all, she's gonna conceive later during her initial breeding exposure and be behind the 8 ball her entire life. But what I'm driving at here is for herds that want to make a rapid leap forward in reproductive efficiency, we'll look at culling those females, selling those females into another market that calve during the last 20-day segment of the calving season. Just get them gone. And with those genetics out of your herd, and those sort of always behind type cows out of your herd, reproductive efficiency and improvement thereof becomes quite an easy matter.
Perfect. Thank you very much. Thanks for taking time. Folks, Dr. Casey Olson, wealth of knowledge. You have something going on with your cows, nutrition, reproductive efficiency, this is the guy to call here at Kansas State University. Also call your local veterinarian if you need help. And if you want to find more about what we do here at DocTalk, you can find us on the web at www.doctalktv.com. I'm Dr. Dan Thompson. I'm Dr. Dan Thompson, here with Dr. Casey Olson, and we'll see you down the road.
Closed captioning brought to you by Vet Gun with Amel and new AMA Abamectin Vet Caps, the 1-2 punch against hornfly resistance from AgriLabs.
For more information about this program or previous programs, go to DocTalkTV.com.
DocTalk was brought to you by Merck Animal Health, the science of healthier animals.